Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is quite an exciting day because I want to share with you three of my most recent book reads and perhaps just read a little bit out of them. So I've had quite a lot of time, I wouldn't say time on my hands, but because of everything that happened, I spent a lot of time indoors and a lot of time at home. And I'm a firm believer that we can excel our growth by learning from other people's experiences. So I call it a secondary experience. So experiencing something through the actions of another person and in a way kind of prevent us from making similar mistakes and then excelling our growth. So I have three books that I recently read. The one is an audiobook, so I don't have it with me here, but I'll post details on it. And then the other one is The Road Less Traveled, a goodie but an oldie but a goodie by M. Scott Peck. Can't believe I haven't read that before. And then this is quite a new one, Think Like a Monk by J. Shetty. So I think I'll start with The Road Less Traveled. So The Road Less Traveled is a new psychology of love, traditional values, and spiritual growth. So this is like a little bit of information on a few amazing topics like love, like discipline. And this has kind of changed the way I communicate with my husband, Daniil, but also with our children. And it opened my eyes to various different things. So one of my favorite parts about the book is about love. So this is on page 155. And he speaks about love being disciplined. So I'm going to read just a part of it for you. I've indicated that the energy for the work of self-discipline derives from love, which is a form of will. It follows then not only that self-discipline is usually love translated into action, but also that any genuine lover behaves with self-discipline, and any genuinely loving relationship is a disciplined relationship. If I truly love another, I will obviously order my behavior in such a way as to contribute the utmost to his or her personal growth. So this really stood out for me, knowing that love is disciplined, and it speaks to kind of ordering your thoughts, your behavior, your words to be loving towards your partner or your children or your husband or your wife. Another piece that is incredible. While one should not be a slave to one's feelings, self-discipline does not mean the squashing of one's feelings into non-existence. I frequently tell my patients, so M. Scott Peck is a medical doctor and a psychiatrist, so he speaks from a lot of background and knowledge. I frequently tell my patients that their feelings are their slaves, and that the art of self-discipline is like the art of slave owning. First of all, one's feelings are the source of one's energy. They provide the horsepower or the slave power that makes it possible for us to accomplish the tasks of living. Since they work for us, we should treat them with respect. There are two common mistakes that slave owners can make, which represent opposite and extreme forms of executive leadership. And I also see this as very applicable in parenting. So one type of slave owner does not discipline his slaves, gives them no structure, sets them no limits, provides them with no direction, and does not make it clear who is the boss. What happens, of course, is that in due time, his slaves stop working and begin moving into the mansion, raiding the liquor cabinets and breaking the furniture. And soon the slave owner finds himself, or finds that he is the slave of his slaves. Yet the opposite style of leadership, which is the guilt-ridden neurotic so often exerts over his feelings, is equally self-destructive. In this style, the slave owner is so obsessed with the fear that his slaves' feelings might get out of control, and so determined that they should cause him no trouble, that he routinely beats them into submission and punishes them severely at the first sign of any potency. The result of this style is that in relatively short order, the slaves become less and less productive as their will is sapped by the harsh treatment they receive. So yeah, this is just a little piece of the book that I really enjoyed about love being disciplined, and how our thoughts and our emotions is almost like slaves to us, and how it's so important for us to be able to treat them with respect, to acknowledge them, but still remember that we are the boss of them. We can ensure that they allow us to treat the people around us with love and with respect. So a little piece out of The Road Less Traveled. Then Think Like a Monk by Shetty. A lot of you might have seen this book or even read this book, but this book is almost like a manual to train your mind for peace and purpose every single day. There are so many nuggets of wisdom in here. And the one piece that I want to share with you today is a piece where Jay writes about your purpose. Sorry for pausing and interrupting myself, but after recording this, I actually realized that I never gave you some context on who Jay Shetty is. You might know who he is, but so Jay actually studied a business degree, and he rejected various corporate jobs after deciding that he wants to become a monk. So for 3 years he was a monk and learned the mindset of monks. And after being there, he realized that his calling and his purpose is to actually teach other people. So he decided to come back and package what he's learned as a monk into a book and package it in such a way that regular people, normal people, can actually access this wisdom and incorporate some of these things that he's learned in their regular life. So that is what this book is all about. Think Like a Monk. This is a chapter about purpose. Everything you are. So there are 2 lies some of us hear when we're growing up. The first is, you'll never amount to anything. The second is, you can be anything you want to be. But the truth is, now this is very, very, very exciting and important, but the truth is, you can't be anything you want, but you can be everything you are. So realizing that I already have everything I need within me, and my purpose in life should be to discover and to journey through life, experiencing and becoming who I really am. So becoming everything that I am, not trying to be anything I want, or a lot of times being anything that other people want. And then he writes a piece about Dharma. So just to give you some background, he says that when you find your passion, your expertise and your usefulness, that is your Dharma. So instead of calling it Dharma, I also like to call it your calling. So he writes about one of his teachers, the Bhagavad Gita, says that it's better to do one's own Dharma or to do one's own calling imperfectly than to do another's perfectly. So then he speaks about how Andre Agassi actually dropped the bombshell of not liking tennis at all. So after achieving everything he did, he didn't like tennis. It was his father's dream. So he ended up living someone else's Dharma or someone else's calling perfectly, but he was so unhappy. So our society is set up around strengthening our weaknesses rather than building our strengths. In school, if you get 3 A's and a D, all the adults around you are focused on that D. Our grades in school, scores on standardized tests, performance reviews, even our self-improvement efforts, all highlight our insufficiencies and urge us to improve them. But what happens if we think of those weaknesses not as our failures, but someone else's calling or someone else's Dharma? Then you come to realize that we don't have to do everything, that we can't do everything. And what I can't do is someone else's gift and a responsibility, and also an opportunity for someone else to live their calling. My limitations make space for the gifts of other people. Instead of focusing on our weaknesses, we lean into our strengths and look for ways to make them central in our lives. So this was really, really helpful for me out of Think Like a Monk. And then the next book I'm quickly going to speak about, it is a book on how basically what every mom needs to know in order to raise her son. So it's called Mother and Son, The Respect Effect, and it's by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. He is he has a PhD in psychiatry and also a pastor. So what opened my eyes is that he mentioned that boys and girls function differently. They are made differently. Women and men are made differently. So where women look at life through a love grid, men look at life through a respect grid. So women really long for that feeling of being loved, where men long for that feeling of being respected. And how in certain situations you can still discipline your son, but as a mom, ensure that you show respect for him. They've actually done a study where they asked a lot of boys, does your mommy love you? And everyone said, my mommy loves me. And then they asked him, does your mommy respect you? And a lot of people said, or a lot of the kids said, my mom doesn't respect me. And men prefer being respected actually over being loved. So he teaches, and he taught me so many different ways in order to still discipline my son, but always discipline the weak flesh. So discipline the actions, but always respect the willing soul. Always respect the man in the boy. And that is one thing that I've learned from Mother and Son, The Respect Effect. Let me know what books you have enjoyed recently. I would love to know. And if you want to know any more details on the book, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to see what your thoughts are. Thank you for joining. Bye.